Contrary to what a simultaneous review of Battleborn and Overwatch would suggest, outside of their overall aesthetic, player point of view, character dynamic, delivery of lore through alternative forms of media in the month in which they were released, we have presented before us two very different games. The reason for the double feature is because upon creation of my Battleborn review, I realized my overall opinion could be summed up rather succinctly. So I just decided to tack this one onto the front of what would have been a standalone Overwatch review. Let's go ahead and get that one out of the way first. Battleborn, in short, is your average MOBA, but worse in literally every conceivable way, and since blanket statements like that won't really help anything in the long term, here is why. First off, the balance is fucked. To offset certain characters using guns in a traditionally anti-gun environment, all the melee-focused characters are horrendously overpowered, while the guns themselves have all the weight and impact of spitballs fired from a straw by an asthmatic resident of the greater London area. Being in first person only made matters worse since it reduces what would normally be your field of vision by about 99%. Losing the ability to examine the entire playable area like you could in the average MOBA puts the emphasis on the moment-to-moment combat. But since this is essentially a MOBA, there is no moment-to-moment combat. The MOBA is built on short, frequent skirmishes, so in a typical encounter, you'll spend about 30 seconds fighting one or more of the enemy team, and either you will die or they will die, and all either of you can do after that is wait for the other to respawn. You see, in a normal MOBA, you have stuff to do between the fights. Check the objectives on the map, gain intel, check your items, check your stats, check your teammates' items and stats, check your opponent's items or stats, something, anything. All you can do in Battleborn is just wait, or fuck around with their pathetic excuse for a skill tree. So when it wasn't frustrating me with its imbalance or subjecting me to its forced tone-deaf humor, it was boring me to fucking tears. So I stopped playing, I uninstalled the game, I waited a couple days, and then Overwatch came out. And wouldn't you know, it's pretty good. Like I said in my Doom review, it's always nice to see a game that's self-aware enough to focus its efforts on what it can already do, rather than wasting its time and effort on distracting itself from a solid core concept. Overwatch is a class-based multiplayer shooter. It is not a insert name of existing class-based multiplayer shooter here, killer, because those do not exist. Does anyone remember Brink or Haze, the so-called Halo killer? No, of course you don't. Calling your video game a something killer is the quickest way to ensure that the people already playing the something you're trying to kill take offense and refuse to migrate. Overwatch played it smart by not marketing itself in such a way. Anyone who does see it this way is dumb. Overwatch is not changing any formulas, just optimizing them. It also helps that the game is fun. There's a wide array of characters to choose from, and each one's relative simplicity means the emphasis on synergy and team composition, and there's rarely an average situation where one player can change the tide of battle all by themselves. The game's overall color palette is nice and broad, which sort of works both ways. While it does make this a very aesthetically pleasing game, it has a tendency to go overboard in the visual department. Nearly all the weapons in the game generate these exaggerated and stylized particle effects, and while they fit the game's overall theme, during particularly heated firefights, the sheer amount of effects on screen can be distracting at best and blatantly obstructive at worst. Also, the presence of unlockable player skins can create a situation in which two characters with similar posture and body shape can be rendered indistinguishable from one another at a distance. There's also a pretty stark lack of consequence, which again can go both ways in terms of making the game fun or frustrating. For one, it allows the game to keep a very fast pace, which means the game's finished quickly enough to allow for frequent setting changes, and short respawn times mean you can always get back out into the fight and participate. But upon reflection, and I honestly never thought I would ever have this to say as a legitimate complaint about anything, but I think the respawn times are actually too short. I can already feel my years of experience with multiplayer video games crawling on my back ready to make me eat those words, but I actually do think it poses a threat to the game's balance. That, alongside the bizarre choice to not have characters lose charge on their ultimate ability when they die, means the game inadvertently favors the team whose spawn is closest to the objective. And on equidistant maps, the advantage goes to whichever team captures the point first, as the other team has little ability to recover, since the holding team can always spawn fast enough to keep the point contested. Overwatch is one of those games where I can't bring myself to imagine there being a competitive environment. There will be, because all these games have them. For fuck's sake, Comp Splatoon exists, and there are people in this world who can honestly say, I play Call of Duty for a living, so I suppose anything is fucking possible. The point is, Overwatch's emphasis is on experimentation with its large roster of mostly functionally unique characters, and boiling everything down to a meta negates the part of the game that I find the most enjoyable. Not that one person in opposition of a competitive environment is going to bring down the entire ship, but hey, if you want to suck all the fun out of something by forcing arbitrary consequences onto what would otherwise be an inconsequential series of winner-loser binaries, be my fucking guest. Provided that there are regular content updates, Overwatch does have the potential to be one of my favorite games of this year, and to help Blizzard get started on said support support, I've prepared a small list of balance changes that I feel it would be in everybody's best interest to implement. Call me petty, but the fact that I can put into quantitative terms the things I feel are preventing me from having an optimal gaming experience shows a significantly higher level of attention to detail from the developers that would result in my being overwhelmed by the game's flaws and just assuming that every character is equally broken. Come to think of it, I do seem to be waxing awfully technical today. I went through this whole review and I only made, like 2 jokes? Jesus, I'm as bad as the Angry Birds movie. There we go, back on track. On second thought, I should probably get used to not being funny during these reviews. I can't help but feel that it's going to happen again distressingly soon.